Welcome, welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And
Amen.
thank
Amen.
we are, of course, reading in Parshat Noach, working our way slowly through the Torah Temimah. And they have gone through the flood. We've gone through the flood, and they're now in the process of getting off the ark. And that's what we're reading about, the verses that speak about that. So, lמשפחותיהם יצאו, according to their families, they went out. It's in fact right up here. That's, of course, the text itself. למשפחותיהם יצאו מן התיבה. According to their families, they went out of the ark. So I'm talking about all the animals and the creeping things and the birds, etc. Okay, so למשפחותיהם יצאו. אמר לאליעזר לשם רבה. So Eliezer, that is Abraham's servant, said to Shem, that is Noah's son Shem, right? Kativ, it's written, the mishpachotehem yatzu. It says they went out according to their families. Atun hechan hevitun. It's interesting. He spoke to him in Aramaic, right? You, where were you? And we'll see why he's asking that question, right? Amarle, so Shem said to him, Tsar gadol hayalanu bateva. It was a great effort. It was Tsaurus, that kind of thing. But Tsar is, like trouble, right? That we had in the ark. It was a huge, huge effort. Bria shedarcha lahachila bayom. So now he's speaking Hebrew, right? Back to him. He says a creature whose habit was to eat, to feed her in the day, right? So, in other words, there were night feeders and there were day feeders. So, a day feeder, hechilanuha bayom. Okay, so we had to feed them during the day. And one that needed to be fed at night, hechalnuha balayla. We fed her at night. So, in other words, they were pretty much always on the go, feeding these animals while they were on the ark. And it's interesting, right? I mean, first of all, he's quoting a scriptural verse, etc. So again, we need to understand this more from a literary point of view, right? That this lemishpachotehem raises literary questions. So let's take a look. Lefi mashe parshu hamefarshim, according to what is explained by the mefarshim, right, the commentators, heve biur ha'inyan, the explanation of what's going on here. She'amar Eliezer Eved Abraham, that is Eliezer, the servant of Abraham, the Shem ben Noach, said to Shem, the son of Noach, Rabbi, my rabbi. Okay, this is the Rabbah, right? So there should be a pause there, right? My teacher or my master. Ketiv, it's written in the text, Lemishpachotehem, Yatsu Minateva. They went out from the ark. Klomar, that is to say, Shekulam Yatsu Ish V'ishto. What does that mean? It means each one went out in couples. A man and his wife went out. Atun, but how about you guys? Hechan hevitun, where were you? Klomar, that is to say, Lama lo yitzatem atem kol echad im batzugo. Why didn't you go out? Why didn't you leave the ark, each one of you with your partner? Rak hagvarim im hagvarim, because we note, as you'll see, the verse actually says it, right? Only the males with the males, v'hanashim im hanashim, and the females with the females, kedichtiv, as it says in the verse. V'yatsa Noach uvanav. We made a reference to this before. Noah and his sons. Noah went out with his sons. V'ishto uneshevanav, and his wife and his wife's sons. And he said to them, Shem said to Eliezer, Ki hayu trudim ma'od. We were very much preoccupied, right? Bateva, in the ark, bechalkala hachayot hashonot, in sustaining the different animals. Velo hayu maspikim lesader yitziatam. Okay, and so I think here we were not in a position, we didn't have enough manpower, right, to arrange the way they went out. Now that's interesting because I would think that they didn't, that is, Noah and his family didn't have the time in which and the ability to arrange their going out. This is sort of interesting if I'm understanding the Hebrew here, but that's this, so this velo hayu maspikim could be he's referring to himself and Noah and their families, right? To arrange their going out like the animals and trying to arrange the animals to go out the way they did. Uviyalkut Yashan, and in an ancient Yalkut, which is sort of a collection, maybe we could say, and it could be talking about an early version of the Yalkut Shimoni, right? That's this interpretation, this midrash on the entire Bible, right? Defus Saloniki, printed in Salonika. Hagirsa b'makom atun heichan havitin. The text reads in place of where it says "You, where were you?" Heichan nefik tu, right? How did you, or where? Heichan usually means sort of where, but maybe we could translate it as, where did you go out, right? And possibly, how did you go out? Vehi girsa yoter mechuvenet le'inyan hanitba'er, right? So this particular version, he says, is perhaps more. It feels more directed and more focused on what is being explained, subsequently. Aval ledati, but he says, but in my opinion, en drasha zo pshuta kol kach. He says this interpretation isn't so simple. For ulai nilkata b'shibushim v'chesron dvarim, and he says, and possibly, I think it is, yeah, that it was collected, I think, written down, arranged with with confusion and also words that were left out, lacunae. So, it isn't interesting. The question and on the answer is sort of an interesting one, and certainly, um, uh, what is that really trying to tell us? What is it trying to say? I mean, what it is pointing out is that there is that distinction between how the animals went out and how the humans went out. And the fact that taking care of the animals was just so took up all their time and all their effort and everything, that they weren't able to take care of themselves going out in order. But again, so what's the point, right? What is the point? Okay. Lemishpachoteihem Yatsu. So we're going to take another one here. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Ba. So Rabbi Chia, son of Ba, right? Lemishpachoteihem Yatsu min hateva. According to their families, they went out from the ark. Why? Why is this mentioned? In other words, why is the Torah thinking that that's an important point to make? And what is the point that the Torah is making? Al Yedei Shishamru Yechusehem. The reason they went out according to their families was that they were careful about their pedigrees while they were on the ark. Zachu lehinatzel min hateva. And for this reason, they were able to retain their pedigrees when they left the ark. I believe that's what he is saying here. Again, is there a deeper meaning? Did somebody want to say something? Yeah, go ahead. All right. Okay. Let's take a look. near air. So we'll clarify it a little bit more. But
Well,
again,
who went out first, the animals or the humans? Who
so
went
it's
out first?
good question. So Harlan, it doesn't say that. It doesn't, we can go
Well,
back and
I would
look.
think the animals would go out first
Well,
because
I would too.
humans,
I would too. Yeah.
the tigers and all would go out first. The humans would go out last.
Okay. But look at the verses here. Okay. Here it says Noah and his sons and his wife and his son's wife with him. And then it says all the animals, etc., etc. Okay.
Oh, and then yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, I mean, just in terms of the verses, Noah and his family go out first, and then the animals follow them. But they
okay.
don't go out in the way that the animals, according to their families, is mentioned only regard to the animals and not to Noah and his family. So
Hmm.
the rabbis are trying to pick up on that and say, well, what was going on here? What's the Torah trying to tell us, in this sort of little bit of an unusual, right? So, by
I
the
would be
way,
yeah. I would be scared of the animals. I mean, I would let the animals out first so they can get away from me, and then I'd go out.
well, that's not what the Torah says, so
I
that's
know. I
yeah.
know you're right.
Well, but the point is the animals were with them on the ark and they didn't attack them there, although we did read about how the lion gave Noah a schmeis one time. But that's about as far as it goes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
all right. Anyway, just to look at the Rashi here, by the way, because he also comments on the Mishpachotayim, and it says, Kiblu alehem al menat lidabek beminan, right? And in other words, he gives a sort of very brief explanation of what we're going to read now, or what we just read, in terms of their maintaining their pedigrees. So you can see where Rashi has taken, the original comment in the rabbinic literature and put it in his own words to make it, because this means kiblulahem, that they accepted, that is, that the animals were willing to accept almanat lidibek mibinan, right, for the sake of staying with their species, right? They didn't combine species. So anyway, let's take a look here. Near hakavana sheshamru yichusehem, right? It appears that the intention here is that they were careful, they guarded their pedigree. Sheshamru, here we go, mitzvat HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that they observed or they guarded the commandment of the Holy One, blessed be He, shelo la'asok b'derech eretz b'teva, right? We know that Noah and his families, his family, did not engage in procreation, right, while
Right.
they were on the ark, that they
Right.
did not engage in sexual relations while they're on the ark. And what Torah Temimah is telling us here is that the text, the source, is telling us that as well, that they went out with their families, and maybe it's saying, the integrity of their families, because they observed what God had commanded Noah as well and his family. Uh, it looks like this. Or v'ra'aya the pirush there, and a proof for this particular interpretation. Mima sheheviyu ra'aya lidrasha zu. Uh, okay, from what they brought a proof for this particular interpretation. Me'ele sheshamshu bateva v'chulam ne'enshu. From those, in other words, they mention some that in fact did engage in sexual activity while they were on the ark, and they were punished. So that proves that the rest of the animals that didn't, were in fact rewarded. So here we go. Cham yatsa mefucham. Ham went out blackened, and he says shachor here. That mefucham it means blackened. I honestly, this is a comment that disturbs me in a way, of course, and I don't like the what appears to be the implications of that, and the negativity here, and I would have to put this under one of those situations where you have to, you know, perhaps contextualize it. I don't know. Remember, there are things even within the Torah that are to be considered chaff. And so for me, this is chaff. There is no way that I feel that people whose skin color is dark are somehow inferior to people who isn't. It is one of the most awful prejudices that exist in our society even this day. I certainly am not looking for anything to support such a thing. All right. But I could try and interpret, blackened in a different kind of way, but that certainly is a way that reflects an attitude that we are all very well aware of. And I think it's actually disgraceful that, but at the same time, sometimes I think our studies and the Torah tests us. And this is one of those tests. So, at any rate, Kelev, the dog, mefursam b'tashmisho. Dogs procreate right out in the open. Many animals don't. Most don't. But a dog does. So that's its punishment. Orev, the crow, mishuni mishar b'habriyot. It looks so different from any other creature. Again, this is the kind of material that challenges me because to me, I don't know that I think of crows as looking so different from other animals. It does have a unique cry. Maybe that's what it's referring to. Not everything that I come across is easy, etc. It doesn't mean I need to leave it alone for these tiny little pieces that are problematic. And I hope you at this point you can understand where I'm coming from, because there's so much stuff that is, I find, deeply worthwhile. And so I just need to be able to try and separate all the good material from what I would consider chaff. And I'm not trying to somehow paint a dishonest picture for you, at least to the best way I can. So, mashma, and so all that implies, dezachut kulam, that the merit of all of the other animals, haitama shelo shimshu bateva, was the fact that they did not engage in sexual activity while they were on the ark. If you want to comment, believe me, I'm open to, if there's anything further that you'd
Yeah,
like to say. Yes.
yeah. The animals didn't appropriate
Yeah,
because the world was being destroyed,
of
and
course. Right.
God said, and when oh boy, when they went on the ark,
Yeah.
Noah's was probably saying, I can't procreate on the ark because the world is being destroyed. I feel bad. I can't do it. I can't do anything and even when he went off the ark, he wasn't going to do it. But God said, please do it. Repropriate, because we want the world to be,
Right.
more people on it.
Repopulated. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're sharing, you're reviewing material that we did based
Yeah.
on the text, etc. Yes. True. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Going on. So after he gets off, we have this verse here. Vayiven Noach mizbeach l'Hashem, that after Noah built an altar for Hashem. Vayikach mikol habayimah haTorah, and he took from all the pure animals, umikol ha'of haTorah, and from all the pure birds, vayal olot b'mizbeach, and he brought up burnt offerings on the mizbeach, on the altar. So here we go. Vayiven Noach mizbeach. So there is a general halacha, okay, regarding animals that are slaughtered and sacrificed outside the temple precincts. Okay, they are called shchutei chutz, right? Animals that are slaughtered outside the temple precincts, and
Oh,
of
no.
that's not permissible. Okay, en chayavim alehem. So one is not at this point held as having committed a biblical violation ad sheya'alum alum l'rosh hamishbeach, until one actually takes the slaughtered animal up to the top of the altar. Dichtiv, how do we know this? Vayiven Noach Mizbech, because it says Noah built a altar. Vayal olot b'mizbech, and he brought up sacrifices on the altar. In other words, it wasn't just enough for him to build it. It wasn't enough. The actual act of service, right, was the actual taking the animal parts and putting them up on the altar and burning them on the altar. So, in some ways, the way this is working also, and we'll see what Torah Temimah has to tell us, is that it could have just said, it just says Vayizbach. It could have said, and he offered up. It didn't need to say this Vayal Olot Bamizbeach. He brought up the offerings on the altar to say that it was at that particular point that he had actually performed the sacrifice. And so what we're saying is that the law is that if you happen to slaughter an animal for the sake of worship to God, right, even to God, if you are not putting it up on an altar itself and bringing it there, you have not violated the biblical commandment yet. It may be a little technical, but nevertheless, that's the way it goes, right? Okay, so here we go. Alma, consequently, de afilu bama yechid. So he's saying, even in a case of a private altar, shehi bachutz, which is outside the temple precinct, eina ha'alata, right, below mizbeach. So the taking such an animal and offering it up doesn't count without a mizbeach, without an altar. Ve'ien od lefanenu, and this is beparsha acharei mot be'inyan zeh. And he says, in the book of Leviticus, where they discuss this kind of thing in detail, we will see more information regarding this. And that's where we'll stop today. So, okay, all right. Never mind, and I will stop. Whoop. Okay, let me just do this and stop the share and see. Any thoughts, any comments?
Yeah, I didn't understand. If he killed the pure animals on the altar, what he didn't know about the blood and the fat yet. I mean, there wasn't no communication between God and him about draining the blood and so forth and so on until they went to Sinai, until the Torah was given to them. In other words, did he kill the animal and then that was it?
So,
He didn't drain the blood.
Okay, Harlan, because it doesn't go into those sorts of details, we simply have to assume that he did it in an appropriate way. And as far as the details that you're mentioning, if that was part of the offering, of the celebration of the offering and the laws of the offering, we have to assume he did it. The Torah is silent about it. It doesn't say he didn't do it. If it says explicitly that he didn't do these things, then we could infer it. But right now, all we can infer is that what he did appropriately.
Okay.
Okay, so I think again, that's just the way we need to look at it at this particular point. There absolutely may have been distinctions between how an animal was offered up as a sacrifice within the Jewish tradition or within the Israelite tradition, but essentially, I suspect these were all fairly similar in terms of what I understand the offering was supposed to symbolize. So it's a question that cannot be asked because it simply says he did it. So we have to assume he did it. Whatever was the right way, he did it. But good point. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.